Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei, and I'm so excited to paint with you today. Today we are going to be doing another page in our Watercolor Journal series. If you're new here, there are over 100 videos in this Watercolor Journal series, so go check those out. But today we're going to be doing, excuse me, a fall themed, I think I'm going to do a wreath and a spray in fall colors, in autumn colors. We are using, or I'm using, a 6x9 Watercolor Journal book. This is 140-pound cold pressed paper in here, 100% cotton. This is Baohong is the brand. You can find links in the description of this video to all the supplies and materials that I use. I'm also using just a size 4 Princeton Velvet Touch brush, round brush. I'm going to use a Fudenosuke, so this is Tombow is the brand, Fudenosuke brush pen. This is a hard tip brush pen, so it can make thin and slightly thicker lines with a little pressure. And then I'm also using my Core, QOR by Golden watercolor paints. This is my made palette where I took 2 paints, put them in this metal enameled tray palette that I bought separately. So they came separately. It didn't come like this. It came in tubes. I put them in here. So I usually use either this palette or my Core mini palette, which did come as a pan paint set. So if you've seen other videos, you've probably seen that one. Here's the box for it. So that's the Core mini. This one comes pre-made. Whatever watercolor brand that you prefer or that you use is great. This is just happens to be the one that I prefer. Okay, so we're going to start with a wreath. I think I'm going to do 2, like a wreath and like more of just a spray. So for the wreath, I'm going to use my handy dandy tape right here just to give me a guideline. So let's do that. I'll go inside, and I use just a pencil, a number 2 pencil. So now I have a guideline here, and I can lighten that up just so I can see it, and it just kind of keeps me on track so my wreath isn't funky or lopsided. So I'm going to do just a combination of leaves and berries for this, and we are going to do ink and wash. So I'm going to use pen to create the outlines for this one, and then also use watercolor to fill it in for the colors. All right, so we're going to just do a series of leaves and berries that kind of go around. I'm going to try to keep my leaves in clusters, so I'm using my Fudenosuke brush, but I want them to be somewhat rounded. And you can play with the size of the leaves. They don't all have to be the same size. So we have this one on that side. Also going to do some smaller, thinner ones. And I'm going to pop some berries in here. And so I have this nice cluster, so I'm going to try to repeat it in some fashion kind of all the way around. And I can keep filling in. So if I want more berries to be up here. It depends on how full and kind of lush you want your wreath to be. All right, so I'm just gonna keep working around, and it's okay to go slow and kind of assess your balance and clusters to make sure things are. So this feels a little barren here. I'm going to come back to it and probably add some filler berries to even it out a little bit. But I'm going to keep going this way to it's okay to overlap things. And this one kind of went off a little bit too far, but I think I can balance it. And just a little bit further to go. I'm definitely going to do big cluster here. I'm going to add in some of these different size leaves. Let's throw in a few berries in a cluster here. And then I'm going to do another nice little spray up here, trying to pull some of the weight up top to balance this out. That's kind of dragging it down a little bit. So let's go through here, down here, and you can kind of assess to kind of see how it's feeling overall and add, like there's a little bit of a gap here that I feel like isn't as cohesive. So I'm just going to add in a few more elements. And now over here, I don't want to get too crazy. Again, depending on how full you want your wreath or how dainty you want it, you might want to be a little more careful. I'm going to throw one rounded leaf there. Okay, I think I'm done. That looks good to me. Now we're going to get to some of the painting part. And actually we're going to do a spray over here too, but I think we'll do painting first and then jump back here. Okay, so for the painting, we're going to pick out some fall colors. Like I said, I'm using my size 4 Velvet Touch brush. I'm actually just going to pick up a larger brush right now just to wet my colors. Let's scooch these over a little bit. Okay, so I know I'm going to be using some greens. I am going to activate my green gold. I'm not really sure yet. So my green gold and my sap green. So I'm going to pull these out. I'm also going to be, I want to create like a burgundy color. I am going to pull out my magenta. Actually, that was my alizarin crimson. So I'm going to pull out my magenta. I am going to doctor it up a little bit with some color mixing. And we'll talk a little bit about color mixing and our complementary colors that really help with color mixing. So I also want, I have this beautiful raw sienna color, which is already, it's like a mellow orange or like a wheat color. And I am going to throw some yellow in here. Let me see. I have this nickel azo yellow for my berries, I think. Believe it or not, I'm going to do yellow berries, yellow and orange. All right, so with these colors, what I'm going to do for my magenta is I'm going to take a little sap green and I'm going to add some sap green to my magenta. And that brings it down and tones it down to this more burgundy based color. See that? So it's like a mellow. Oh, I just added a whole bunch, but I'm just going to make a lot more color. So you'll see I'm going to add more magenta to it. And you can swatch out your colors as you're mixing them if you're just not sure. It looks pretty good in the palette, but you want to see how it's going to look on the paper. Go ahead and swatch it out. All right, so we have this beautiful burgundy color. I'm also kind of want to do a purple. So let me pull out my purple color here. This is a Dioxazine purple, but again, I want it to be more of a gray purple, more muted in tone. So the opposite of purple is yellow. So I'm actually going to take some of this green gold or something in the yellow family. This green gold is like greenish yellow, and I'm going to add that. And I went a little too far. It's a little too brown gray. Just add some more purple to it. And there we have this lovely, so even just looking at this trio of raw sienna, this burgundy, and this purple color, this feels very fall to me, or autumnal, without getting into like bright oranges and things. Just everything gets a little bit more muted. And I think in combination with some of these yellows and greens, I think this could be lovely, like this combo here. All right, so let's start painting now that we have a nice array of colors here. So all my leaves are not going to be green. I'm going to mix it up with the purples and the burgundies and add the berries as accents in the yellow or green gold, or maybe raw sienna. Okay, so I'm going to start with my purple actually, and I'm just going to come in and start painting some of these leaves in this purple color. And I'm going to go from lighter. So I put down a nice, just even wash of this purple to contaminate my yellow over here. But then I'm going to drop in, while they're still wet, just some darker color. There we go. So let's put in a few more. Let's not paint, I'm not going to paint all of them purple, I've decided, even though they're all coming from like the same plant, because I can. But I'm going to do these, and I'm going to do this over here. And I'm going to take some of my burgundy, my wine color. So a lot of folks have asked about water control and getting that that bead of water on the end when you paint, and then you pick your brush up and you get like that splash of color and water, which is darker than the rest of what you've painted. And then it dries a little funky. So a couple things with that. One, the paper is really going to make a difference. So I'm working on 100% cotton paper. So even if I leave a little bead on the end or something like that, often what will happen is the paper is really great at absorbing it. It takes a moment, but it won't leave those harsh outlines. The paper will eventually like absorb all of that in within reason. If I leave a huge, huge puddle, that will start to act funky. But you can see here, it's just slowly, gradually absorbing into the paper and kind of evening itself out. So paper is a huge factor. If you're working with cellulose paper, that is going to happen a lot more often. I'm actually forcing it into some of these. So keep that in mind. The other part is having too much paint and water on your brush for such a small area. So if I go into this area with a fully loaded brush, you can see I have lots of puddling or big funky puddle areas. I know my paper for the most part is going to be able to take care of that and absorb a lot of it, but I'm just going to pull some off. If you don't have 100% cotton paper and you're trying to minimize that a little bit, what you can do is, so loading up your brush, and before putting it right to paper, knowing you're going into a small space, just touch your brush to your paper towel. It's going to pull out a lot of the excess and leave you with just enough to kind of fill in that space. And then if it's still leaving a little bit of a puddle on the end, just clean off your brush, wipe it all off, and then go back with your brush and just lift out that little bit. Okay, makes sense? All right, so I've got quite a bit of purple. I'm gonna go over these. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to tackle some of these other leaves, these smaller ones, with my sap green. So I'm going into a really small space. So you see, I just pulled out. I didn't need all of that color. Still have plenty to work with. This is much different than how I paint, like painting within lines using this line and wash. Than I would paint. So it's different than how I would paint this if I was just painting it freehand. So I'm going to go in with some of my raw sienna. This is that yellow color. So I'm not keeping any one leaf type, any one particular or two particular colors. I'm just filling in where I feel like the color is balanced. So that might bug some of you. And I do wish I had like a leaf or two over here that I could do in the yellow color. Well, let's see what happens if I add just a little of this to some of the green. I think it will be fine because I'm going to balance it out with these berries. But see how this has lots of yellow over here, but nothing over here? I could always go back in and just add in where it might make sense. Let's see, it's pretty heavy over here, but I want something like right here. I'm just going to add a leaf that I can paint in yellow. So now that feels better to me. All right, so I'm going to start on the yellow. So I have this nickel azo yellow in the berries. Whoops, wrong one. So this is quite a bright yellow, but so I might not like it when I see it down. I'll leave some white spots. And you know, I think I'm going to go into some of them with maybe some of the magenta to create more of an orangey feel. Just drop in a little bit of color, give them a little So some of these are still very wet, so just dropping in a little color, seeing what happens, giving it a little shape and form. How do we feel about that? This looks fun. Oh, I missed a berry. Right here. Oh, I want it to be yellow. And you can continue, just because you can definitely continue to go back over, make some things a little darker to create some different contrast. So maybe one or two purple leaves go much darker with another layer. Same thing with the magenta. So same color, just going in with another layer to make them darker. Maybe a couple of the leaves. In the green, going a little bit darker. And then those berries as well. Let's see. Maybe I can make a nice dark orange with my magenta and yellow. And just a couple of them. Go even a little darker. There we go. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks great. Fun colors. And again, you can let it all dry. You can reassess. You can add in more ink if you want to, fill them in, or even leave open ink areas. It's up to you. So let's come over here and do something similar, but in a different shape, not in a round wreath. All right, I've turned my book sideways so I can work this way, because I think working the other way I would have been a little too narrow. But I like the idea of to do like a spray or something like that. I'm actually going to put a nice big central. I'm going to do a pumpkin in the middle. Now I know we already did something like this a couple of days ago, but basically I'm going to start with the stem up here. Just draw a little kind of wonky stem, and then we're going to give ourselves the outline of a pumpkin, kind of a little shorter and fatter versus super tall. And then we're going to put those creases, lines for those creases in here. And you can see I'm not using like a hard line edge. I'm kind of being very sketchy on purpose. All right, so we have our little pumpkin kind of gourd in the middle. It's got a nice bumpy bottom. It's not super flat. And then out from this, I'm going to kind of develop some leaf vines. And same out this way. And again, if it's easier for you to draw this, something like this in pencil first, so that way you have the ability to kind of rearrange and erase as you go ahead and do that. There are some times when I probably should do something like this in pencil first. All right. So in addition to that, I'm going to throw in some round shapes. We call them berries, but they're just trying to have a nice, not even, not perfectly symmetrical, but balanced. So this one seems and feels a little bit longer. I probably could have gone like one more leaf wide on that side, and let's throw some berries over there. There we go. Okay, that looks fun. Now, I'm so sorry, I keep sniffing. My allergies are crazy this morning. All right, so for our pumpkin, we're going to do a combination of orange and blue. So, or greenish blues. The leaves are all going to be like greenish blue color, and we're going to do a nice orangey pumpkin. I'm going to start with yellow. I'm going to start with a very warm yellow. So this is a Diarylide yellow, or if you have a gamboge yellow, you could certainly use that. It can look very orangey. It's like the best of both worlds. A very warm yellow, very light orange. I'm just going to give this a wash, leaving some highlights in some areas. Lovely. All right. And now I'm going to start to go deeper. So I'm just going to start to add some of this burgundy color. You could add straight magenta, but I'm going to use this because it's going to give us a little bit more of a rustic, earthy orange color. And I'm going to focus on the bottom part of the pumpkin to make it darker, and on those creases. Okay, so it gives a little weight. Actually put some like right around the center here too. And then let's go crazy. I'm going to take this burgundy. I'm going to add it right to the bottom. Boom, 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 boom. And let it interact with all of the color around it. I'm just going to blend it in. And it works. It works. It still gives that orange vibe, but we went kind of from 0 to 60 in terms of depth and darkness. So you can see I'm pulling color off. I'm not always putting color on. All right, let's let that dry. We can always come back and give it more attention. Just gonna blend this highlight a little bit more there. Let's do the stem really quick. Stem is easy. Sap green and this magenta or burgundy color makes a nice little brown. Just go ahead and give it a little brown color, leave a little white gap there. Great. Now let's get into our greens and blues, which I think will balance this really nicely. All right, so I'm going to start with some sap green. Let's make a little room on my palette. We got all of these other colors. I'm probably not going back in here. All right, I'm going to start with sap green, phthalo blue, and some Payne's gray. So these three colors can make some really fun, interesting things. I'm actually going to switch to just a larger brush for color mixing. It's just a little easier. Picks up more color, and I feel like I damage my little brush a little bit, although I'm not precious with my brushes. All right, so these two colors are great, but I love to combine them to get this beautiful green. So this one is more blue, this one is more green. And then I also love to add some, I'm going to go over here. This is Payne's gray, and I'm going to add green and blue to it. To make more of these gray kind of navy colors. We're going to go more blue over here. Look at that beautiful color. I am going to pull this one a little more towards the green, the sap green color. There we go. So we have this nice kind of combo of these beautiful colors. I have splattered water on here. Okay. So I'm going to start with the green. And kind of go, just spread them out. Go on this side. Here, let's go up here. I'm just dropping in little extra bits of color. I want it to have some funky textures. All right, and now I'm going to go blue. These will dry lighter. They're going to seem super dark when you put them on, but they do dry a bit lighter. And then I think the berries, I'm going to go with that lighter blue-green color, this color over here. All right, let's go with this. Actually, let's make this even a little more blue and a little bit lighter. We're just going to add some water to make it a little lighter because these berries are so tiny that if you put too much pigment in them, it's just going to be like really dark. Let's leave some white spaces in some of them. And then I am going to go back to my pumpkin and add just a little more contrast. But I love this color combination together. So that looks super fun. All right, so really quick, let's go back. What colors did I use? Oh, I used Diarylide yellow and this burgundy to make an orange. I'm going to throw in a little magenta. Oh, put my hand in a wet leaf. All right, so now we're working wet on dry. I'm going to go back into where the creases are. Darken them with a little bit more color and towards the bottom and kind of blend it out. And if you do feel like you're losing some of the vibrancy of color, but you don't want it to get too dark on the top, you can do what's called a glaze over top. So it's like a light. So let's take this yellow. So the top was mostly this kind of very warm, very light yellow color. So let's take this yellow and let's add a bunch of water to it. So we want to bring some of the yellow kind of nature back to the top area. We're going to water it way down and then we're just going to put a light glaze of that color down to kind of pump up the hue. And then our brown, I'm just going to take some of this burgundy and add it around the base of the stem. There we go. All right, there is our pumpkin spray with our leaves. I put my hand in it again, so I messed up this leaf down here. You know what? Let's fix it. Let's fix it. First, I'm going to fix this leaf. Now, there's a little bit on the edge here. I can't do much about that, but this big blob down here, make a leaf. I'm going to go with green. I'm going to paint right over it. My gosh. Just keep your hands out of the leaves, Shayna. Okay, there we go. I love this one. I love this color combination. It's so fun. I like this one too, but this one, by far, my favorite of the two. All right. Thank you so much for painting with me today and following along. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials that I use if you need any recommendations or just want to check them out online to get a better understanding of what core paints are, or this particular sketchbook, or pens or brushes. Also, please leave a comment, share with a friend. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so or you're new here. And thank you so much for following along. I always enjoy these watercolor journal days with y'all. So take care, happy painting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.